Colour gets all the glory, value does all the work. On those lovely occasions when someone has said to me something wonderful about my painting, they will often comment that they love the colours in my painting. But as artists, we understand that the values can be what is actually setting up the success of a painting. I've got this example here of my recent abstract. I've just done a video on that I'm releasing in a couple of weeks, and I'm really pleased with it. And it occurred to me that perhaps I got the values right. Perhaps I've got a wonderful array of values in this painting. What I want to do is talk generally about value, why it's really important. The grisaille, it rhymes, by the way, with Versailles, and which is all about value. And this is a very traditional method that anyone can use. I want to talk about different types of media, especially because in watercolour it's quite different. Oil and acrylic, you're adding white to get your different values, but in watercolour we all know that we're adding water. And I want to mention masking because that is such an easy way to preserve the whites. And in order to get a beautiful colour range in watercolour, you can go yellow, which is a really light toned colour, but you can also preserve the whites using masking fluid, and I absolutely love it. Supplies, I thought I'd let you know what I've got ready. So I've got a little bit of masking fluid. I'm going to be using this little rubber applicator because I'll be able to spread it out really thinly, and then it will dry nice and quickly so that we can get painting. I've also got 3 dishes. This is a very traditional way to learn tone. We're going to mix up 3 different batches of tone. So it'll be a dark, a medium, and a light. And that way you will be thinking very clearly about how to use tone. The other thing that I want to do is start with a very simple value scale. I'm going to I'm going to talk about that book in a moment. Yep, that's it for that one. That's for that one. Now, if you want to take any painting, any picture, let's say that you want to transfer it into a painting of any sort, abstract or not, because abstract also relies, as in this one, relies very much on tone as well as colour. By the way, you'll hear me constantly switching between value and tone. I know that value is the word that's used all the time in technical books on value. It's certainly the one that's referred to in the 7 Elements of Art, which is the series that we're continuing here. But I call it tone. I just always have. So going back to this one here, this is a beautiful painting by Ellis Rowan, and I am not doing near enough justice to this magnificent painting because the blue ran out in my printer, and this was the best that I could do, which is hilarious. Also a really good colour exercise to look at this painting without blue. It's not as beautiful. Anyway, the point is that if you want to turn any painting, any subject into a painting, one of the things that you can do is take your subject and print it out in black and white. And then you get a value scale. There's lots of apps that you can use to create value scales. You can purchase apps. You could use Photoshop, which is an extensive piece of software that gives you full range. You can just divide it into 3 value scales. That is a really awesome method of working out your values completely. Or you can just print your picture in colour and then print it in black and white. That is the simplest way. And of course, you can just do it on your phone as well by adjusting contrast. Ellis Rowan was an Australian artist who painted lots and lots of magnificent flowers, and has incredibly beautiful work, or did have incredibly beautiful work. Okay, The other thing that you guys asked for were books to recommend. This one's called Drawing Concepts. So lots of books will refer to value, lots and lots of books, but this particular drawing book is awesome. It's got a bit of everything, very accessible. It's called Drawing Concepts, Step by Step, Walter Foster, in case you go looking for this one. I particularly like things that are bound with this wire because it sits flat when you're referring to it. So over here, we've got a value scale. That's what we're going to do today. We're going to get a pencil because that's the fastest way to establish a value scale. And that's what we're going to do, excuse me, very quickly. Just get rid of that one. I've got a piece of paper. This is just cheap paper so that we can do a value scale in pencil. And then we're going to, my camera hates it when I change. If I lift stuff up, the camera hates it. Anyway, we're going to do a quick value scale on this piece of paper. And then we're going to look at different colors because different colors have different values. I bang on all the time about yellow having a low value. And in this, we're going to explore the different values of colors. I'm going to continue using this lovely round paper. I'm enjoying how the format of the round really, this is the one we did last fortnight because it was a fortnight since we did value. And the circular format is really working for me. It's quite lovely. I used that lovely tape down here, so I've got a little bit of that tape in case I want to use it on our second exercise today. Here I've used some masking fluid. Now I'm going to be referring to this image, and it's got a moon and that I'm going to mask out and very Australian gum tree. And the gum trees are quite hard to paint. It's much easier to paint a tree that is deciduous because then we don't have to do foliage. So I'm going to challenge us today and just do foliage, which is what we're doing in this little exercise here. So I've put the moon behind the foliage, and I really mucked up the branches there, but I'll improve in today's one, I hope. Yeah, so I've put a moon in with masking fluid, and that enables us to just paint over the whole thing. And we're going to paint the trees in 3 green scales. And I mentioned the 3 little bowls. We're going to mix up 3 bowls of green, and then we'll be painting the sky in that way. Now, I'm not going to put in a sky in the background. I'm going to paint around it if we feel it's necessary, because it really wasn't, it didn't help the lightness of my light green. So that was a good thing to learn. So I've got a nice fresh piece here ready to paint our first exercise. The second exercise we're going to be doing will be an abstract landscape, because that's the other thing you asked for in a fortnight ago. So let's start with the value scale, also called a tonal scale, of course. So you could take your time, you could draw it up very, very carefully, or you could do what I'm doing and just start dark, get a little lighter, get a little lighter. I'm going to drop to the bottom so that I use the most insane light pressure down here. Light, 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 light. Maybe go a little darker, 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 darker. You can do this in any color, and we're going to explore 3 colors over here shortly. This is a good moment for, so that's no difference between that scale and that scale. I'm going for 10 being darkest, 1 being lightest. That's a general way to refer to it. In the middle here will be number 5. Light, slightly darker, not really slightly darker. I'll give it another layer. If we were doing a drawing exercise, then we could probably do some cross-hatching, but we're not. We're doing, I just want to get into, I'm going darker, darker, darker. All right, you can see I've mucked them up. Okay, make this darker. Make that a little darker, make that a little darker. make that, oh, you can see that I'm just like mucking it up all over the place. I needed to erase some from there. That's not a mid-tone. You totally get the point. You go from light to dark. Let's play around with three important colours, the three primaries. And good morning to Carolyn and Julie and Helen and Dave and Robin and Hit C. Hi C, Hit C. Right, I'm getting rid of that book, getting rid of my painting, and I'm going to open up my palette so that we can explore the three primaries. And grabbing a brush, and we're going to do really quick value scales. And the reason why I'm saying quick is because it's the sort of thing that you could do again and again. You could explore any of the colours that you are wondering about. Are they light tone? Are they dark tone? And I find it's quite easy, though, to just do it quickly, especially in the environment we've got going here, which is where we've got a bit of teaching going on, but at the same time, it's the sort of thing that you could take your time over. So I'm going to give you the basics of it, and then if you want to take time on it, then you do. Okay, I'm going to wet this the same length. With just a wet brush. Now I'm going to go straight into the deepest, gooeyest, fabulously darkest, technically, part of that yellow. I am layering up my brush with as much Vegemite as I possibly can. I could get the tube and open it out, but I find when I use that method that the paint doesn't spread evenly, and I'm after an even spread. So I am rubbing, no, I'm not, I'm circling, digging, drilling into this yellow to get some really wonderful, thick yellow. Okay. And I'm going to go thick, 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 thick at the top. That's, let's say, my darkest. Wash off most of that yellow and come down. Wash off more of that yellow, remove the excess water and come down. Wash off more and come down. You can see already this is working well, I'm very pleased to say. You can see that it is losing tone completely. Now I'm going to wash my brush, get rid of the excess moisture, there's a bit of towel there, and come right down. That's just the same all the way down. Yellow does not have the value, it does not have the capability of dark value. So in watercolor, we treat it quite separately. We treat it a little bit like a white, in fact. Okay, let's get a blue. Let's get a blue that we know is wonderfully dark. For me, that's ultramarine blue. I know that's not a perfect blue. It's actually like a blue with a bit of red, which I call a warm, which some people call a warm blue. I like to call it just blue with a bit of red. The other blue I've got here that always gives incredible power is phthalo blue. But let's try it with ultramarine blue because I love the uses for ultramarine blue. So we're doing the three primaries, yellow, blue, and then we'll pick a red. Right, so I'm going to massage into, this is much easier to massage into with a wet brush. Probably just because there's a whole stack of it. I am forever squeezing out masses of ultramarine blue in there. Okay, here's my brush. Hi, Lena. I'm not sure if I said hi earlier. Okay, I'm going to paint the same rectangle. Oops, run out of water because I removed too much from my brush there. Same rectangle to create a value scale in blue. Okay, thickest blue at the top. This is how dark ultramarine blue goes. I could probably get it a touch darker. I'll go back into even thicker paint over there. I wonder if I can go even darker. That might be its limit. And if we go back to the pencil and I go even darker again, and then you squint, that's the easiest way to see your tones, because when you squint, you remove lots of detail and you remove lots of tone. So if I squint now, this is reading as dark, this is not reading as dark, and this is reading as wonderfully dark. Okay, remove some blue and bring it down a bit. I shouldn't have waited, but I'm going to get a little mark there. Remove some blue, bring it down a bit. Remove some blue, bring it down. You can see instantly I've got all this way to go. Remove blue, remove blue. It just gives you instant range of tone. Okay. And a red. We're doing the 3 primaries, yellow, blue, red. You could do any color that you want. And I have over here, I'm just going to wash that one off. Oh, Catherine says, good morning from sunny Sydney. I recently discovered you, Mary. Thank you for your wonderful videos. Oh, thank you, Catherine. That's wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful. Over here, I have alizarin crimson. So I'm going to spend a few seconds. Again, I'm not squeezing out fresh paint because there's plenty in there. And I don't use that much alizarin crimson anymore. I'm such a big fan of permanent rose and quinacridone rose. So I've got lots of paint to use up in here. Oh, and quinacridone magenta, of course, that's my other wonderful color that I use. Okay, I'm just spending a minute really massaging it in. There's barely any water on my brush, and because of that, I'm going to get a lovely, rich, dark alizarin crimson. Okay, painting water on. Oops, I'm painting instead of just coming straight down. If I'd used a flat brush, I might have gotten an even more beautiful box. Oh, it's thick. I can feel it. It's thick. Oh, look at it spreading. Isn't that different to the others in the way that it pushes away the water? That's such a key, awesome thing to understand about alizarin and its ability to push. Okay, I'm not waiting in between. I'm washing off because it's still so intense up there. Oh, I need to wash off more. Oh, wow. Marvelous. I have to wash it off completely to get down to the bottom. Julie says, Angela Fair has a red and green value finder that she looks at her photo through. Oh, that sounds cool. Right. I could take some off there. I could fix this up, but I'm not gonna. You get the point that different colors have the ability for different values. Yellow has this really tiny value. I could have done the blue a bit better and shown that it probably has a better value scale than alizarin crimson. It doesn't matter. The point is that you get to understand that different colors have different values. Now, let's get on to our lovely first subject, which is the trees. I'm using the round paper. So if you don't have round paper, just I'm just washing those. And I've also got all this red there on the edge of my bucket. So I'm going to turn it around so I don't pick it up 100 times. I'm going to dump that one. Here's my round paper, which I'm enjoying. Dump the other one. And this is what we're heading for. We're going to make 3 lovely batches here. And over here is it's not quite in focus there. Is that working? That's better. Great. So here's the apologies for not posting that to Facebook. I try and post the photograph in advance, but you can probably hear from my voice that I've been a little bit under the weather. So The photograph has this beautiful moon. I live in Sylvania, and this was taken right round the corner. And there are lots of beautiful gum trees. I wonder if this is the top of an Angophora because of that beautiful smooth bark. You can see that in my painting, I didn't bother to include the rooftops uh, because I didn't think it added anything to it. And that way we can just keep the subject within this lovely small environment. So I'm going to keep this here so that you can see it, and then perhaps, is there enough room? Yes, you just can't see the moon, that's all, but that's just a white circle. You'll be fine with that. Okay, bit of masking fluid. Doesn't need much shaking because there's almost no pigment at the bottom. Okay, I mentioned earlier that I'm using this awesome little applicator. It's called a shaper. I'm going to put the moon in that beautiful 2/3 position. It's kind of like the focal point. So if that's 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, I'm going to put it at that point there and do a little quick circle. And by using this little applicator, I'm going to, it just needs a tiny bit more. It was so thin. I do want it covered. I don't want to be later on removing some of that colour. Okay, that's going to take a tiny bit of time. It is a beautiful tree. Thanks, Julie. The beauty of this little applicator is that you can wash it off. You can just wipe it off while it's wet. So easy to remove. There's no washing with one of these little applicators. Okie dokie. Let's set that one aside to dry. And then, I can see I've got red paint on my nails. Set that one aside to dry and start on the other one. So these 3 dishes are just going to be for wonky. Julie, Helen says wonky moon here. Oops, don't make me laugh or I'll cough. Oh no. I'm going to be using a piece of Bao Hong Master's Choice. It's rough. I love rough. And that's because texture is what I absolutely love, which reminds me, next week is form and the week after is texture, as in next Wednesday is form and the week after is texture. And I've scheduled them all. I'm really loving doing this series with you, and your feedback is so wonderfully important to me. And it helped me get out of bed. My husband thought I was a little crazy, but I love doing this. And I'm going to now take this down. I'm using this blue tape because I've got lots of it. And I don't usually use blue tape. I do find it can set off, make you think the painting is a little bluer than it is, but I also have this incredible desire to use up stuff. So the desire to use up stuff wins. That's wonky. I'm going to make that go down there. So the first little painting, this one, is going to be done with the little dishes. This painting is going to be focusing on tone, and we've already established which colours are light and which colours are dark, and we're doing an abstract landscape. So when I'm thinking about tone and landscapes, I think about one of those lovely little paintings that you can do, one of those wonderful exercises where you paint a landscape, and you could do this. Julie says, waste not, want not. Exactly. I love that theory. Ideal. No, it's like a way to live, isn't it? So you could, if you wanted to, just go a lovely light wash over the whole thing, then come in with a slightly darker wash, then come in with a slightly darker wash, and you could do it all in one color. But we already have an example of a painting that we're going to be focusing on one color in 3 tones. So in this one, let's go for it in terms of color, but be focusing on getting darker and darker as we increase the interest in our landscape. So I'm going to start with a lovely spritz over the whole thing. And normally I say to students, don't wet it before you've prepared your color. And I just did the exact opposite of what I'm forever telling people to do, because I'm not thinking 100%. So I'm going to work quickly to get my color happening. Now, over here, we've got this beautiful phthalo turquoise. Pick any color you like. Any color that does something wonderful for you. Any color that makes you want to sing. Any color that makes you want to continue painting. Any color that makes your heart sing. I'm just splattering, 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 just to get down a lovely bit of texture in the background. Most of this will dissipate. I'm going to get rid of this stuff off here, off the side. So that I can tip it. So partly I want all the excess moisture to come off. Also, I want some lovely marks on the page. Whoa, how cool is that already? Far out. And I've got a tonal range. That was completely accidental. Nah, I should claim, no. That was completely planned. Look at that. Helen says, painting picks you up, doesn't it? Oh, yeah, it really does. Especially when you can get into those beautiful moments. Okay, that is so beautiful. Apologies for you not being able to see the banging on the page there. Okay, I'm just going to let it do its thing. If this, oh yeah, because I put on that incredibly fine layer, that's dry enough, which is perfect. We've set that one up. I'm just setting it aside. We can come back to this little cutie. And you need to see my 3 dishes. This is the towel that sits under everything. I did not think that through, did I? Okay, now let's see. So just show you my palette. There, lovely. You can see a couple of brushes sitting there as well, and it's focused. All righty. Okay, now I've just put some green on there. Oh well. Painting and photograph. If I move this over a little bit, no, I'll move the camera over. That's a good idea, isn't it? There we go. Lovely. Okay. Now, I'm going to keep that brush loaded with my phthalo green. No, I won't. Just get rid of it. See, that's when being canny with my products is not helpful. I think efficient is also awesome. Now, 3 greens. Now, so I could just do it with green, and I would do it with phthalo green, but we all know that's just such a weird color that it's very unnatural. So I'm going to go natural because it's a tree. If I'd thought all of that through, that would have been kind of cool, wouldn't it? Okay, here we've got some ultramarine. And I know if I mix ultramarine and quinacridone gold, I bet I'll get a wonderful green. How earthy is that one? So that was ultramarine blue and quinacridone gold. This would also work with ultramarine blue and raw sienna. This would also work with ultramarine blue and yellow ochre. Can you think of more examples in case you don't have quinacridone gold? Oh, it's so beautifully earthy. That is absolutely perfect. Okay, I now need a darker version of that. Okay, I'm going to go back into my ultramarine blue and put a lovely big dash of it there. Then I'm going to, oh, that was a blue brush. Here's my quinacridone gold. So I'm going to pick up from my palette some near pure quinacridone gold. So I'm trying to keep the tone as dark as possible, because in this dish, I'm making a dark version, then I'm getting a lighter, 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 dark version. Okay. Oh, it's such an earthy green. Now, it's almost a bit khaki green, so I'm going to add more blue. Third brush. I've got 3 of this type of brush. This is a 00 black gold, and when you're working small, it's really handy to be able to have a range of small brushes. They're kind of like rounds, but with that beautiful tip. I'm not going to wet it. It's already a little bit of moisture in there. So what I'm going to do is, see, it's coming straight up with my brush. I don't need to worry. So adding blue to a color, it just always makes everything beautiful. All right, how wonderful is that? And it's quite a small painting, so that actually will be enough. No, it won't. Like, just do the work now, Marion. Okay, more blue, so I've got a bit more paint. And it's not quite so natural looking. I'm going to wash this brush, dry it off, dry, 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 and then stick it into my quinacridone gold. If you've got fresh quinacridone gold, that would be much better at this point. And I'm going to dump that and stick in quinacridone gold. Blue and yellow. So quinacridone gold is basically a yellow. All right, now we're talking. Now I can transfer some to there and a tiny bit to there. Now let's pick up a bit of water, and I get instantly, because we all know in watercolour we go lighter with water. I have seen many, many students turn up to class. Lots of water to this one, by the way. Lots of water, lots of water. It's very dirty water, but I don't care. I've seen so many students turn up to class and they have, I want that to be beautifully pale. Is that pale? Yeah. To turn up to class with a set of watercolour. And if you buy a cheap set of watercolour, it will come with a white in it. And I have no idea why they do that. I'm assuming some designer somewhere in places where they make cheap paint, for some reason, think that you should have white. But that comes from a knowledge of acrylic painting and oil painting, not from a knowledge of watercolour. So often with students, it would take me a little while to talk them out of using white, but especially if they had experienced acrylic in their past, which is really common. Okay, lovely white, lovely white, lovely light colour here. Now, the tops of this, let's call it an angophora, because I'm not sure, but sounds like I know lots about trees. These have these kind of moundy things. They're kind of like little mounds, and that's how we're going to paint them, because if you break a subject down into shapes, it really helps. So we've got a little mound here, a little mound here, And then we've got a little mound, and that all those little mounds make up a bigger mound. Then there's a whole series of little mounds there as well. It's really hard to see in this more than two tones. For me, it's hard to see more than two tones. So we're going to invent the third tone. And I'm going to paint these as little mounds, fully loaded. In this one, I did a bit of dry brush, but I didn't really like the look of it. So I'm going to fully load my brush for this one, and I'm going to paint in, and I'm going to cover that. That's for sure my mistake already. I'm going to be painting a mound and a mound and a mound straight over that. I want that to be covered. And I did like that I finished it. I'll just move that over. I did like that I finished it there, that it didn't go all the way, because sometimes that's quite nice to do what's not expected. Oh, Julie says, I think of them as umbrella shapes. That is absolutely perfect. They are. We're going to paint little umbrellas, wide umbrellas. Yeah. Like those big umbrellas that make big, wide shapes. Oh, they are a lot like umbrellas. I love that idea. Okay, let's start off the page as though we've started over here, and then we go in, and they're a tiny bit irregular, so I'm using the tip to make it irregular. Go back and fully load, and then so that I'm not just being, pattern-like, I'll go down here and do one over here. Oh, that's so good to think of as an umbrella. That's great, Julie. And little, using the tip again just to make the edge uneven. And then I want to come over this moon. There's a mound and there's a mound. I want to go straight into my mid-tone and put in, oh, it's not really a mid-tone, is it? A bit more water. Okay, so if you're doing this at home, test your tones before you begin. That would work very nicely. I want this mid-tone to definitely cover the moon, and I'm continuing with the mound umbrella shape. And then I'm going to go straight in, so it's all wet and wet, straight into the darks at the bottom there. Straight into the darks. Straight into the darks. And I want the darks over the moon, but I'll just put a little bit. And that way that will be a wonderful example of tonal contrast, because I'll have the white of the paper covered, sitting next to that lovely dark. Okay, over here. So you can see that the photograph is just a launching off point for that. Just a little warm. Yeah, I need some foliage down here as well, so I'm going to repeat the process. And I can't remember what brush. That's gone darker. Okay, so we'll start again. As in, start with a clean brush. Doesn't matter if there's water on that brush. Oh, I've just taken my jacket off and realised that I took my jacket off and it took off at the same time I took off my microphone. Excuse me while I reattach my microphone. It's such a cute little microphone. It's called a Rode, and it's got a little a little hairy thing on it to I can't remember the reason. Anyway, I'm reattaching the microphone. All right, now I've got a wet brush, which is going to make this one even lighter. Let's make it lighter again. Let's increase some water. Increase the lightness by adding water. Okay, now I like the idea that I know we've already got a circle to kind of keep us in there within this space, but I like the idea that within that I go kind of triangular. So I'm going to come in like that. Here's the light, lovely light, And I'm just looking at the photograph to see, there's really quite a space and a space and a space. These dark ones, I don't know if I'll even put them in, but let's say there's a space down to these ones. So I could put it as low as down here, and then maybe some of them will touch. Okay, that's a good plan. I want to try and vary. Should I get smaller? Are the mounds smaller? Yeah, they are. They're smaller. So that's kind of cool. They're big mounds at the top, big umbrellas. And I'm going to try and keep it within this kind of triangle. So that means I limit it to here and do a mound, but a smaller mound. And a mound umbrella. And a little mound. They kind of are joined. And here's my mid-tone. And put in a little mid-tone, and straight into the darks. Dark. And I'm going to be random. I didn't really need to go over the top there. I'm going to be random with the darks there. We can come back and make that even darker if we want to. There are these lovely dark ones there. Perhaps I'll put in a little bit of darks that are kind of connected to these, kind of. I don't want to put in little marks that are too separate from the other marks. I find that can look a bit odd. In my painting, I did kind of a third layer. So I'm going to do a third layer. Wash it right off. Wash it right off. I'm not getting rid of the water this time. I'm going to introduce more water. Continuing down here. This one can go smaller one, smaller one. I might separate them. Smaller one. Mid-tone, make it a little darker, 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 dark tone. Here's the dark tone. And again, I'm going to be random about the darks. Right, with that lovely dark tone, I wonder if I might attempt darks up here right now. Dotty, dotty, you know, as in quite random. No, they're not random, are they? But they're textured. They're very textured. I can't wait, by the way, for when we do textured. It would be for when we do texture. I'm just so excited about texture because that's my most favourite thing. Helen says, too much water is making my values blend too much. Oh, excellent comment there, Helen, because, yeah, that is exactly what will happen. Too much water and they're going to mix too fast, which means perhaps, Helen, you'll let it dry and then come back in and just do the whole, just re-add some texture to the colours you've got there. I'm going to do branches last. I love to do branches last, but partly because I find that the foliage is the hardest part to do. So in the beginning, I only ever painted trees that had no foliage, and until I worked out a few methods, read a few blogs, actually, funnily enough. Right, let's let that dry, and then we'll come back to it. And I'm going to wash that one off and dump it over there. Okay, let's bring back the other. Just put these things out of the way. All right, how dry is our painting? It's so wet, I can see that it is wet. Okay. Oh, bloody hell. Oh, I just... it's all right. I saved it. No, I didn't. I tipped paint all over my little painting. Oh, look, instant branches. Okay, I said I shouldn't make myself laugh. That is the most hilarious accident, that the paint would come down like that and look like little mini branches. Yeah. Am I just being super positive there? Okay. All right, that's better. That's how I tipped them over. I was just slowly pushing it up. Happy accident, yes. Thanks, Julie. That's exactly right. Right, we're going in for a abstract landscape. We're going to take our inspiration from this initial layer. So you'll have a look at yours and you'll go, okay, which bits are working beautifully? Which bits, since we're thinking landscape, oh, I'm so sorry that I have to do this. I'm wiping my, I'll just show you what I'm doing. I'm doing this over the microphone. So you can't hear me blowing my nose. I hope that worked, because it is horrible to listen to someone blowing their nose. Apologies for that. Right, now, going back to this one. Make myself feel great by painting something very satisfying and enjoying, just indulging myself in this beautiful thing, beautiful abstract painting that I can share with you. Lena says, I made my painting to have an accident. Looks great and exciting. Oh, wow, that's so exciting. Now, I think this looks a little bit like a sky. It's got some softness in it. It blends off to nothing, so perhaps that's wonderful. The other thing that you might consider doing is rotating. That's quite lovely that way, isn't it? And oops, rotate that way, rotate that way. It's really got a lovely upwards movement when I look at it that way. But I'm going to persist with this. It does seem to have sort of a movement going that way, and that's, I assume, because I tipped it off in that direction. So I don't want to have too much movement heading off the page, and we're doing an exercise in tone. So what I'm going to do is use some yellow and increase the interest in the light areas for now. It's a tiny bit wet, so let's use that to our advantage. Get rid of that dark green. I've got this yellow here, and I don't love yellow. So I'm going to add a tiny bit of this alizarin here, and just the tiniest bit. It's still incredibly light, but I prefer an orange to a yellow, completely personal preference. So my goal at the moment is to stop this movement that's really forcing, it's pushing off the page. So what I might do is, much more water. Really light tone, so it's got lots of water in it. And just go around and touch. Oh yeah, that's a good one. If I block out those lines, those lines are really increasing that look, aren't they? So little tiny bit of this lovely orange. I'm going to make that go off to nothing over here. It hasn't knocked back that line there, so I'll keep that in mind. Just keep moving down the page. Moving down the page. As I come down the page, I could increase the tone. So here's this beautiful red. I'm going to mix it in over there and come down. So increase the tone. So I'm thinking today to try and just focus in on tone. Lots of water over here. So that means that the tone is still quite light. Oh, as the red mixes with the green, it's so beautiful. So beautiful. I'm just kind of filling in a bit. I wanted to go darker at the bottom. So I'm going to mix some of this beautiful alizarin. I'm going to stick with the alizarin, get a little more, and mix my own magnificent colour. Oh, how yummy is that? But I went way overboard with the turquoise. That is phthalo turquoise. This is alizarin crimson. Go back to the red. Oh, haven't finished. Oh, that's it. I wanted the red down the bottom. A bit of dry brush, which is a lovely method for showing tonal contrast between the white of the page and the dark. I'm going to add some turquoise straight into that. Okay, I need to finish off this beautiful orangey colour that I had going. Lots of water, and it's very subtle what the orange is doing, but because I began it over there, I feel like I need to finish it. I'm going to interrupt some of those lines as well. This is all mixing on my palette, which suggests the fact that it's come up this way. It's not so much about my colours, but a bit about gravity. This table that I work on is getting pretty old, and it keeps moving. Down, I'm going to repeat the light tone dark down to, light tone down to dark tone. So get darker there, too soon. That's got that yellow in it. Let's increase the yellow. Just thinking tonally at the moment. Turns out the orange makes the other colours look good. Keep with the orange for now. I did like this bit, so I'm going to try for now not to touch it. It's be the sort of thing that I can touch later. I'm still thinking tonally. Lighter, lighter, darker, darker, darker. Get darker down the bottom. And while the purple is beautiful, it can dominate a bit. And I would like the turquoise to dominate. For no good reason other than I like turquoise. So let a colour dominate that you love, or let a colour dominate that tells a story. Either way, let a colour dominate. Right, I am automatically getting rid of all the lightest parts of my painting, and I did not see all of the right side. Oh, lovely, thank you. Lovely. Bit out of focus there, 1 second. There we go. Thank you, thank you. Thanks, Dave, that's really cool. Okay, I am going to try from here on in, completely leaving those whites, especially up the top. I can get darker at the bottom, but a lovely idea in landscape is that you use tone to bring the viewer into your painting. So you can go from light to dark, and that is one way, or dark to light, works both ways. Look at how this is dominating down the bottom. That's tone giving you a base to the landscape. These lines here are a little bit hard, so I'm going to struggle to make that a sky anymore. So I might completely get rid of the sky idea now, which is so interesting. If you just work on tone, then something completely interesting happens when you're working. I'm just so delighted at how many times I learn something by going through these lovely elements of art. It's so interesting. Right, I'm going to set that one aside. Maybe I'll leave it standing up. Yeah, I'm going to put it aside, but I'm going to leave it on an angle like that so that any excess runs off. Oh, no, I will leave it on an angle like that so that any excess runs in this direction. Yep, okay, decision made. Okay, let's go back to our little cutie and our 3 dishes that I knocked over. Okay, here's our photo. Here's our suggested painting. I think this is better than this one already. So the dry brush is awesome, but maybe now is the moment for a bit of dry brush. Back to this lovely little one here. And let's start with the pale tone. Let's remove as much as I possibly can so that I can see if I can do a little dry brush. I'm going to test it over there. I'm using it as flat as possible. So if that's the board, it's really almost in contact with my painting. And nope, it's doing nothing. It's very, very light in tone. I'm just trying to put in some extra interest because it does have these little bits. If I just do it in incredibly light tone, the dry brush, by the way, is totally not worked, but I'm just adding a little detail. Okay, let's go to the mid-tone and see if that will work. So there's all the excess moisture removed. How's that if I put in little bits of touches? A bit better. A bit more interest around the, oh, there's the dry brush. So if you get another piece of paper and get rid of all the colour, that will work. Okay, I've got it working much better. And I really love that I put it around the moon. Little bit of interest, little bit. Oh, it's really dry brushing now. It's nice. Oh, lovely. So if you want to put in a sky, now's a moment for putting in a blue sky, and you could paint it around it. Or, but what I'm going to do is move straight into the branches, and I want a dark tone. Though, interestingly, maybe that didn't help that I did a dark tone. Yeah, right, okay, I'm going to use the light tone. Because if it is an Angophora, these branches are incredibly light and they have a lot of, could we say, quinacridone? Quinacridone. Oh, man. I'm going to pick up some of the quinacridone something. I'm changing the colour a little bit. I've added a little bit of that quinacridone something. Okay, we're going to put in some branches and do the now you see me, now you don't. And I'm going to aim for a triangle too. So the branch will be now you see me. Oh, it looks the same. More yellow. Now you see, I'm going to go smaller, thinner. Okay, I need to switch brushes. Okay, much better. Quinacridone gold. Okay, there we go. Now I've done it very straight, and if I look at the image, they're not straight at all. For you, Queen Gold. Yes, thank you, Julie. That's thank you. All right, they are wonky branches. They are like, they've got all sorts of wonderful, oh, this brush is much better. So this is my liner brush, which I use at the end of paintings all the time, because so often at the end is when we're putting in that final bits of details. And there's an amazing Australian artist called Joseph Zilvich. Apologies for hashing his name there. And he says that you do a painting, you make a painting in the same way that you would get dressed. And the final thing that you might put on would be your jewelry. And the jewelry is about the final marks. The jewelry is the final embellishments. Then they're as important to your outfit as all the other bits. I just looked up at the screen and could see my little painting, and it's a cute little funny thing. Quinacridone gold. All right. I'm trying to cover up my big mistake there. And there's this other big mistake. Too funny. I might need to paint in a sky to try and make something out of this. And, oh, there's a lovely little random branch that goes out like that. And tiny little mark up the end there. And, oh, there's so many tiny little branches. But because I've made it so heavy up there, you can't see them. That's why I used the dark over here, because you can't see them. This looks like a really interesting, oh, loose. Helen says loose or firm hold for your branches. I'm in the middle. Such a good question, Helen, because you do want control for these branches, don't you? But you do want them to be, thank you. I was reading Julie's comment in the middle of that. Thank you for today. We appreciate doing, especially you as unwell. Thank you, Julie. I really appreciate your comment. Back to Helen's comment, loose or firm hold for the branches. Yeah, so I think I'm going in the middle there, which means it's kind of like a balance, isn't it? I could be going right down into that completely tight control, which is as tight as you would be using for writing, where you've got complete and utter control. But if you go in the middle, it's a bit of both. You don't have complete control. I'm going to come in with some darks. I'm going to load up with this beautiful colour. Oops, it's gone out of focus there. Look, this is my dark. Load up with the dark and see what we can do in terms of these branches. I wonder if we could put some in that go into the foliage, or perhaps they appear in amongst the foliage. Perhaps I'm really looking forward to taking the masking fluid off. Oh, it's a bit better, a bit more interesting with some darks in it. If I make that branch darker, I'll draw more focus, and I don't want that. So, all right, for these ones, I'm so glad you asked that question, Helen, because for these ones, perhaps I should be. Oh, look at that. And then I'm going, and it's kind of doing a dotty thing, dark colour, but it was not too dark because I loaded it with the lightest Queen Gold version there. All right, lose control completely now. And I think that's kind of helping because I've got that tiny, tiny brush. I'm going to make it go through. I know that in this particular image it doesn't, but I've seen 1,000 gum trees where there are always these little sticks that stick up, as though, something came along and ate all the foliage off it, or it's like a half dead bit. I think it's a little bit odd looking. Doesn't matter. You get the point, because it's all about, there are many other subjects that I could have chosen, but I did say at the beginning that we were going to challenge ourselves and do the hard thing and do foliage. Right, I'm going to let that dry, and then we'll be able to take off the masking fluid. Dump that one. Wash my lovely little liner. Move the dishes completely out of the way. Oh, I've got paint all over me there. Paint, paint, paint. And bring back the fun one. Okay, one of the best things about switching from subject to subject is that you get a fresher look each time. You can look at it and you can see, like, my eyes were instantly drawn to this lovely dark down the bottom. So that means I need way more of them. If I'm going to keep this as a landscape, I could be thinking mountains, I could be thinking trees. Perhaps I should continue with this moon idea. Perhaps okay. I'm going to use a circular shape. And interestingly, that's what excuse me, leaning down to get this one. This one was about focusing on circular shapes. You wouldn't know it necessarily because it's not full of circles, but it is about circular shapes. I meant to tell you at the very beginning that what I did also get out were I got uni Posca pen, I got out a pencil. This was just sitting on my table and I thought, oh, good. This is a this is a watercolour pencil. It's a purple and it has a number but no name, 435, but it's, between magenta and purple. And then I have a series of Winsor & Newton professional watercolour. I call them pigment sticks. I don't know what Winsor & Newton call them. Daniel Smith called them Windsor sticks. Oh, look, I've got yellow ochre, and that's how I mixed that colour there. So let's stick with this palette. Do I have this green? This is a type of green. I'm going to do a little swatch. That is phthalo green. How wonderful. Oh, and that is a bit of a pigment stick from Daniel Smith. And I bet it is ultramarine blue. I don't really know. If you don't have pigment sticks, watercolour pencils are awesome. And but so are just pencils. You could just go over it with pencils. The thing about using a watercolour or water-soluble product is that you get this advantage that it will dissolve a little bit when you work into a wet surface. Let's say then that we'll keep with this theme of the gumtree, just the theme. And we've been talking about these beautiful umbrella shapes. So perhaps this would be a lovely way to create, and I'm just going to go bold, just go for it here. And I keep pushing my board up and knocking over my dishes. Intense pencils, says Robin. Yeah, perfect, because they're water soluble. And then you get this beautiful opportunity to work into the wet surface. So there's bits of this painting that are a little bit wet, so that will work. But a lot of time has passed. So I think in order to make these rather wonderful, the I'm going to spray it anyway. In order to make these things look fabulous, put in, oh, it's coming out in big drops because I'm barely touching the handle. That's kind of cool because then I'll have some areas where it melts a bit. I know it doesn't melt, it's dissolving. And so what about if we just draw a tree straight into it? Or we go with the mounds, which would be taking our inspiration from the gum tree. But actually, the more I think about it, the mounds, nah, I don't see that working with this at all. Yeah. But if this is a moving surface, okay, now I think this might be better. If this is a moving surface, then I think I'll go with it and I've already stopped some of the movement off the page, which is pretty much me putting tone all around the white parts. I knocked back all of the brightness of the white on the outsides by putting little bits of tone. So now with this lovely dark blue, which makes me think carefully too, I'll start with the lightest tone. Helen says river. Yeah, it does remind you a bit of that. And yeah, so that could suggest, therefore, that there'd be fish or pebbles. I've done pebbles so many times. I absolutely love them. But perhaps there'll be some sort of fish. And if I start with this lightest tone, which is I think it's yellow ochre is what they're calling it. Yep, yellow ochre. Then I'm going to make my mistakes or do some exploratory work first with the light tone. And then when I get to the darker tone, I'll know where I'm heading. So if the most of the movement is this way, I could move with the move against it, like, you know, salmon going upstream. But I think what I'll do is go this way. All right. Oh, no, fish. I've forgotten already. Right, fish. Okay, what do fish look like? They've got tails. They've got, okay, there, there. And let's come up to here and here. Oh, will we have any fish over there? Oh, no, let's do a triangle. Up, up. Oh, brilliant. Now, what do I think this one? Green. I'm going to put in little fish. Little fish. Actually, they're not even fish, are they? Which is kind of keeping with the, oh, it's blue. That's too funny. Now I've just got two blues. That won't matter. Blue, blue. I'm just thinking about this beautiful shape that is, oh, let's give that one an eye. That one can have an eye, an eye. That's drawing focus, isn't it? And then I'm going to go in for what I'm assuming is the darkest one. And if you wanted to be really careful, then what you would do is practice all of this before you, oh, this is much harder to draw with, so interesting. Let's go to the wet bit and put in a fish, put in a fish, put in a fish and a fish. And then let's give them some eyes, some eyes, some eyes, some eyes. Oh, I want to give them red eyes. Let's go in like this. I'm just continuing with the fish. And because they're all pointing that way, it's giving it, it's adding to that sense of movement. This is still looking very, very bad down the bottom. I really hate that bit on the bottom. I'm going to cover it with that magic green. Phthalo, oops, I splattered. I'm just going to cover it. And we know that a dark tone completely covers it. Dark. Okay. So much better with that red purple that I mixed up was just horrible. All right, I'm going to just enjoy myself. And I still kept some of the lovely whites. I'm very pleased about that. I have a really big habit of completely covering a surface quite often. And it's not always satisfying, though that's when you can return to something like a beautiful white Posca pen, or it's where watercolour also hits its limit. It's not brilliant if you haven't gone to the trouble of preserving the whites, which, you know, please yourself. Just work around stuff. It's art. So the point is to enjoy yourself. None of these go off the page. I'm going to make some go off the page. Just expand that out, expand that out, expand that out. Oh, and I know how to enhance that idea too of, we know that I did this earlier, tipped it, and then that just extends. I'm going to give it a bang. Yeah, this is too dark. Okay, now it's time to lift. Oh, I mentioned that I might use this. This is plasterer's tape. I'm going to cut some off. So you buy this at Bunnings. I mentioned this in the last one we were doing colour, and I used it on this one and created by painting over it, and it adds a little bit of colour. And then I lift it off by using the tape and then lifting some colour off. So I'm going to do that. see if I can lift off. I've got some tissues and I'm just going to press really hard and see if I can lift off. Nope, it's having no, it's adding texture, but it's just lifted it back to the colour beneath. Now it's not helping. A couple of options available to me here include, oh, I like the texture though. Oh, I think I'll add a bit of over here. Yep, bit of texture. Okay, it's time to think about balance. That's the other series that I've been thinking about once we finish these elements of art, as we could go into the other wonderful system of thinking about art, which are the 7 elements of art, and that includes balance. And when you do balance, you're thinking about balancing all the elements in your painting. And I'm feeling that this big dark that I put down the bottom is not helping in terms of balance. So I do have a stencil because I think I need to really remove it. I'm not going to switch into another media yet for 2 reasons. Firstly, it's not dry, so Posca markers won't work over that. Also because we are focusing on watercolour, so I think to switch media is, maybe that's a little cop-out. So I do have a round stencil, but I don't have a random stencil. I'll just use this one, stick it, wet this. This is one of those super, it's a kitchen sponge, so it's designed for scrubbing bathrooms and surfaces. Okay, bit better. I just need to dry this off. I'm going to put it over there. Julie says, do you have a magic sponge help lift the dark? Oh, wow. I should have looked up sooner. Is that what you wrote that? And then I totally picked up my magic sponge. Thank you, Julie. That's wonderful. And yes, I'm scrubbing hard here. Don't have to scrub the bathroom. I can scrub my artwork instead. All right, now how's that? That's gone through the green to the red. That is so beautiful. Boy, I think we'll be re-exploring that when it comes to texture. Okay. Since I've put this little bit here, I think I need to do more. And what I'm going to do is grab the scissors again, which I don't know what I did with. Oh, there they are. Grab the scissors and create a little fishy shape, like so, and give them some texture with, what shall that one have? Queen Gold. Let's try you. Oh, it's too wet. It's all too wet for this to work. I need to wait for that to dry. All right, let's come back to it. I've got a little bit of a plan. I'm going to set this one aside. I'm just going to tip all this stuff off. Okay, I'll keep my little fishy though, because I really like the idea. We might return to that in a moment. Here it is. We can remove it. I do have a sponge for, not a sponge, I do have a little thing to remove masking fluid. This paper, by the way, doesn't really like masking fluid. So I don't totally recommend. Oh dear, I am removing the rest of the paper. Look, yeah, it really doesn't like masking fluid. Weird moon that's very easy to fix. Okay. That looks like some funny little, oh, maybe I've got a whole fish thing happening today. Here's the green. Oh, I know, I've got it in the dish, of course. Here's the green. That was a dark version of my green. So I'm going to just little darks in there. Just adding that same, it's not the same, but if you just add the same, I'm going to come back to the photo. If you add the same tone over existing tone in watercolour, it gets darker. Darker on the bottom, giving them a little bit of, and I've lost the umbrella shape. I've totally lost the umbrella shape. Maybe that's why. So there's bits about this that are good and bits about that. Oh, look at this. That tells you it's a stainer. Okay. I know that when I get to a point and I start to go dabby, 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 that I am just not enjoying the project. And it's a good sign that I need to switch, stop, or think to myself, it was a good exercise. I see what I learned. I see what I didn't. But boy, is it desperately asking to have a lovely sunny sky. I'm going to give it a lovely sunny sky. Here's some cobalt, such a pretty blue, and it's a blue that's soft. And I'm going to do the quickest sky I can do by putting in a bit of colour there. And I know so well that the problem with putting in a little bit of colour here also means that you need to put in blues elsewhere. But I cannot resist because it just looks so dead with that green. So I'm touching the green a bit and just basically with water, but it'll get rid of that little colour shift, that little shift from one to the next. A little bit of blue in there, bit of just water now, just water, just to try and lift it that tiny bit. And let's use tone to finish off. Let's put in light at the top. So let's remove light, light, light. Or maybe not. That's not really working, is it? Maybe I'll put dark blue at the bottom. That's got a bit of green in it. And if I leave that with no blue, that'll make it pop even more. Oh, so much better with a bit of colour. Those branches are dead boring, really dead boring. So this, I'm going to make it brown. Here's my dark green, and I'm going to add to it some of that Quin gold that I'm using all the time. Quin gold is such a browny gold, it's automatically going to be turn something browner, 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 browner. And let's give those, yeah, I think the idea that those are so slight, are so pale, the branches don't look like they'd really be supporting. Oops, it's wet. And I forgot to go to my dark. I forgot to go to my little light one. Here is, right, apologies that you can't see that. I'm loading up with burnt sienna. Right, and the branches are going to be wobbly and wet, and I just don't mind at all. It's just so interesting how that green, as a little subject on its own, is dead boring. You can paint whole landscapes in one colour. I've seen it done many times in blue and sepia, and I've seen it done so expertly. It's fascinating. But I think a whole painting in that green that I mixed was horrible. Helen says, I found the branches really difficult. Yeah. Oh, okay. I think this little painting is going to go into that book of bad ideas. Nah, I'm only kidding. I no longer keep stuff that, unless I really want to, I no longer keep paintings that are big mistakes. I might chop it up or I might throw it out, because I found that if I kept the stuff I didn't like, then I just get really disappointed. That's as far as I'm going to take that one. Turns out that one was much better. I cannot tell you how hard it has been for me to concentrate today. So you'll have to totally forgive. I'm just getting my other one. Totally and utterly forgive what happened today. I'm going to put that one there and see how I lift off, because I really wanted to come and do this. Oh. So we're nearing the end. I really appreciate you hanging in there. I really love the idea that it made you get out your paints and that we painted together. This is the first time I've painted in a week. So for that reason, I was really glad that I kept going. Really glad. I'm going to give each of the fish a tiny little bit of texture. I'm going to do it first with the tissue to get rid of the extra moisture, and then I'll go back in when it's, oh look, that's coming off, just with tissue. Helen says, so glad you soldiered on today. Thank you, Helen. It's just been so worth it to, you get in such a funk when you're unwell, and you're just going through the motions of letting your body work through. And it's been really delightful to sit here and share. I'm also really delighted that I would soldier on. Of course, if I was still doing classes, I wouldn't be able to. You can't possibly turn up to class not well. It's one of the advantages in YouTube. How's that? Little tiny details on each one I'm doing. Big or small, I'm just using the same stencil for each one. I just am keen to do little bits of detail. Oopsie. This stuff is so brilliant and really strong. Like, it's allowed me to do all of that. Oh, I wonder if I can go back in and do this one again. There's probably not much tone in this one to remove, but yeah, it's just starting to move a bit there. Robin says, even though mine looked nothing like yours, it's been such a good learning experience. Thanks. Thanks, Robin. And Helen says, off to Bunnings. And Julie says, rest up and get some sunshine to fight off those germs. Oh, what a lovely idea. You know, so often for entertainment at night, I just watch television. But when you've been in bed for days, you get so bored of television, don't you? I think this is the sort of thing that is a lovely underpainting. Well, I think that there's some beautiful colours, there's some movement. I think it's not complete at all, but I can't thank you enough for hanging in there with me. I haven't been making horrible noises, so I'm pretty pleased with that. I really appreciate you turning up and really glad that we got to enjoy this together. So I will see you next week for form, which will continue with our series. And the other thing that I wanted to mention is the book that I hope you've been persisting with. Oh, look, I stuck some stuff near the front of the page. And Carolyn says, thank you. I hope you feel better. I just noticed that one there. Thank you, Turning. And I've stuck in paintings of which have elements that I like. And there's the elements of art: line, shape, color, value, form, texture, and space. We've done line, shape, color, and today we did value. And next week we're going to do form. So then I've been sticking in bits and pieces, but the pieces I like, or the pieces that speak to me, or the pieces where I really valued it. And that one was about shape, and we did rounds and diagonals. And I haven't stuck this one in where we did color. And then today I get to stick in some other things. Probably not this one, but maybe I'll do this one and be like, hey, I had a good intention. Or maybe I'll stick this one in. And I know it wasn't an example of colour. Was it an example colour? It doesn't matter. The point is that it's a lovely opportunity to stick stuff into a sketchbook. If you enjoyed this today, please give me a thumbs up. It really makes a difference. And I so look forward to joining you next week when my voice will be all better. And I really look forward to it. Thank you so much, guys. See you again. Bye.